10th board meeting of education. We have already established a quorum, so at this time I need an approval of the open session agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? And now I need a motion for approval of the consent agenda items. All in favor? Communication and reports. Public comment?
We have no communication.
There were no requests for public comment.
Okay. Next is making a difference recognition.
Yeah, so first I'd like to congratulate Michelle Silvers, who is a daycare worker in our child care center and works as a summer custodian. Has been chosen as September Making a Difference Award winner for the district with several nominations. Some of the comments, Michelle spends most of our school days throughout the year watching over our youngest bulldogs at the early child care center. During the time in the summer, she pitches in to help out the custodial crew, clean and prepare the buildings for the start of the year. Michelle has been a dedicated employee for over 25 years in the district. So Michelle, thank you. In addition to this recognition, she'll be featured on social media, and there will be snacks at Macquarie. I think tomorrow or Thursday we'll have them over there as a recognition.
The real prize.
Thanks. Okay, next we have the community champion recognition. I'd like to congratulate the Lafayette County Children's Services Fund, if you come up. This organization has been chosen as the September Community Champion Award winner for the district. Lafayette County Children's Services Fund has been a huge supporter of the district over the last several years. A few of the initiatives that they have helped with, the addition of 3 school resource officers, which we'll get to meet tonight. This has allowed the district to have a school resource officer in each building. They have also supported the elementary student behavior regulation rooms through Grow Pediatrics. And so thank you very much for everything that you guys have done.
Well, we appreciate you continuing to ask for funding because that's why we're here.
Fair enough.
Next item is the finance report. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Just a quick little update on the finance department. The on-site audit has been completed and we're working through the final requests and tasks for the auditors. 5 auditors were on site for 2 days. We are working together to finish those final pieces, and we plan on the auditors returning to Odessa to present to the board, hopefully in November. And then the tax rate forms that were approved last month were submitted to the counties prior to the deadline.
Thanks, Jeff. Maintenance report.
So just a few items we've kind of completed or working on since our last meeting. Some pothole repairs out at Upper Elementary has been a help. Got some new, what we talked about, the trainer's office here at the high school, that's finished up. New items in there. The high school kitchen here has new flooring, new poly flooring that we ripped up all the tile and did that project. Some new child care center playground equipment got installed. The sidewalks, we talked a little bit about this last month with some of our projects. We're working on getting those repairs in progress and looking at those. So some other things that are still ongoing is working on updating lighting on the buildings, painting the exterior doors on the building. The facility management software we talked about, Mike's just about wrapped up the back end of that with them so we can kick off that program. Of course, HVAC evaluation and repairs will be ongoing. He's keeping a close eye on those too. So a lot of good stuff going on.
So the asset management stuff that Mike's working with, you know what is that a software program?
Yeah, FMX is the one we went with. We looked at a couple of different ones. That one seemed to be the most user-friendly for our needs.
Any update over at the church on the fencing? I thought we were going to put fencing at That's the.
Yes, so that's in progress
That's in
as well,
progress, so-
yes.
okay.
Actually, didn't go by there today.
They have the post up, but I didn't see it.
Okay, so I was gonna say, last time the Pembroke wasn't
Done.
the post are.
It done.
Somebody drive out there. Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
Thanks. Say I didn't get by there today
Yeah.
for some reason.
Anything else on maintenance? Roger? Okay. Superintendent's report?
Yeah, the building administrator report is in your packet for review. I want to thank the Odessa Police Department for their collaborative effort this morning while working with the school district through the safety concern that we had. I also want to thank Lafayette County Sheriff's Department and Missouri State Highway Patrol for their presence while we investigate the situation as well. To date, the district membership remains of 2,000 students. Started the year with 2,058. At the end of August, membership was at 2,032. Our official count day is the last Wednesday in September, and so next month, hopefully, we'll have the cohort membership report that I've been doing annually. You'll be able to see the growth or shrinkage of cohorts and how that fluctuates through the years as they get through. So that's what I got.
Okay. So moving on, discussion items. School resource officers.
Dr. Fagan.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm Lieutenant Salmon. Part of my task at the police department is to supervise and help these fine gentlemen and lady. So I'm just quickly going to introduce each one of them. So first is Greg Daniel. He's at the high school. Then we have Andrew Lockhart, who is at McQuarrie. Dylan Radigan out at OUE. And then Sam Bell, who is at the middle school. And the newest addition, Radar. And I just wanted to make sure to formally introduce everybody. And then also give Sam a chance to tell you guys a little bit about Radar and introduce Radar to you guys and let him love on you guys for a moment, and we'll get out of your guys' hair. Sam?
So this is the CISMT K9 that I came for you guys, I don't know, last year sometime. We did end up getting him middle of August, right before school started, so we've had some training. He's already had 11 deployments since school started, 9 of those being in the middle school, 1 of those being at McQuarrie, and 1 being at the police department during his week of training. He's doing some really good things. We'll continue his training and continue keeping up the good work, but I will tell you that a lot of the kids love seeing him in the hallways. It's got to where during passing time, I have to stay in one place and tell them, okay, quick pet, go to class, because otherwise they will sit there for hours and love on him. But other than that, I mean, he's still a lot of pup, so I apologize if he does the excited nibble thing. We're working on it, but yeah, he's doing great. He's gonna be big. I got in contact with his breeder, and his dad was 90 pounds, mom was 85 pounds, so he's gonna be between 90 and 100 pounds once he's done growing. So, but any questions?
How old is he?
He's a year and 4 months. May 25, baby, 23. So he's big boy. Wanna go say hi?
And just for your guys' information, we were able to get over $11,000 in grants and donations to do this program. So none of the costs for this program are coming back onto the school board or school district in any way, shape, or
How do you guys determine like, where you're going with them?
So the counselors will call us. Becky Cowman, she's one of our counselors over at the middle school, and she's called me twice now to have him come up and sit with a couple of students. Anytime we go to a PR visit, so like at McQuarrie, they did the ice cream social for what was that, their summer book reading. We got to go do that. He was super excited because he got his own little bowl of ice cream. So, but that's kind of how, I know all the new smells, buddy. That's kind of how we determine like what a deployment is. Anytime we're used, anytime we're called, Anytime he calms a student down so they can go to class, anytime we walk a student to class so that they go to class. We had one kid that he starts out his math program this way. He pets on radar and calms down, and then he can do math for his class. So, but, yeah. So, any other questions?
So does he sleep really well at night?
Oh yeah. When he goes home, he racks out for probably 2 hours, and then I'll put him in the backyard and he plays with the dogs that I have at home. But oh yeah, I will tell you, physically he doesn't have the strain of like an apprehension dog, but mentally, I mean, when he gets done helping a child, he passes out in the office. Oh yeah. He goes in and he goes in his kennel or he goes into my desk and he's snoring. So he definitely gets a little R&R after an appointment. So. All right. Thank you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for everything this morning, everything you guys do. Yeah. Super glad we made the move to get one of you in every building. So.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. AI handbook development.
Ms. Smith.
Right. You can't top the K9. This is AI is pretty cool. So let me introduce all of we first. So we've got some new faces here for you guys, I'm sure. So Tia Saxon, she's our instructional technology coach. So all things tech, that's her wheelhouse. And then we've got Jenny Oxshire. She's our elementary instructional coach. Amazing, amazing job. And Kyra Walsh is our secondary instructional coach. This team has been amazing. I learn so much from them every day, so I am extremely thankful for them. And one of these being, I'm also learning about AI. So, yes. So, our motto here in Odessa, we are learning for a lifetime. So, as education and just our world is advancing, we want to make sure that we're kind of staying up to date. We know best practices. And so that's where this discussion is starting to take place. So we all know that artificial intelligence is kind of becoming a part of our everyday life, even when we don't notice it or realize it, is what I'm learning lately. So we are in the early stages of, we are aware we are going to need an AI handbook that states or outlines the acceptable uses and non-acceptable uses for our students and our staff. So we are just now digging deep into what is AI, how can we use it, and then what do we need to put in place to make sure that we're not abusing the usage of it. So again, that's kind of how this conversation got started. So things before we dive into AI that we want to make sure that we are all aware of is that good pedagogy is still important. Best practices is still important. We're going to make sure that we are following the trends with education, but we can't replace our teachers. That's the main goal. We still need to develop positive relationships with students. Our students aren't going to learn if we don't have those relationships. So again, a device cannot replace a human. And read alouds with paper books are still cool. We're still going to promote that. That's not going anywhere. So in AI, I'm going to let Tia take over here.
All right, some of the most common probably tools that we use around the district that are AI specific would be ChatGPT, Magic School AI, Gemini, which would be Google's version, and then Adobe Firefly, though AI is embedded with pretty much every tool anymore. So, but as far as a standalone AI product, these are probably the most common in our district. This is just kind of a little joke in terms of we have teachers, that are very fluent in AI and some that probably have yet to touch it. And so this is just kind of a fun way to say, like, a teacher's first experience with AI. They're like, okay, let me put in an essay question and see what it comes up with. And so it answers the question. They think, it's a B minus. So then they say, okay, turn this essay response into a sea shanty sung in a minor key with accompanying chords, and it spits it out in seconds. And then they're like, oh, holy crap, right? So just so cool the things that you can do with it. So just wanted to show you a few examples. So Adobe Firefly is one that is more for generating images. So just to give you an idea of what that does. So the example I used is an English bulldog on a beach reading a book. So you can put any descriptors you want, and then it will generate that image. You care if I log in as you, Dr. Fagan, for this?
Sure, why not? As long as you set this image as your background.
Right, exactly. Okay, maybe it's not gonna work today. But you could see from the slides an example of what it would spit out. So, which is really cool.
Is Adobe Firefly free?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
So just some things we want teachers to consider before they dive into using it in their classroom. Just some ideas to get them started is, okay, think about what learning targets, what objectives are you trying to achieve, and how can AI tools help me achieve them? Or, you know, we all have students in our classroom that are below grade level and some that are above grade level, and this can help us like scaffold down for those students to help catch them back up, but also extend the kids, you know, that need to be pushed a little further. So you can think of AI as almost for a teacher, like their own personal assistant, right? And then for a student, as we'll see in a couple of examples, where it can be a personal tutor. All right, so just some examples of how it's currently being used in our high school setting. I know our ELA teachers encourage students to put in like their topic and have it help them create an outline. So we're not encouraging them to write their whole paper, but help them get started writing an outline. Here's my topic. Here are all the things I need to include. Help me get started with an outline. And here's an example of what ChatGPT or something of the like would spit out. Or maybe they're struggling to understand Scarlet Letter, and so it says, create me a song about Hester Prynne from Scarlet Letter and make it a country song. And this is what it spits out, which is pretty cool in seconds. So just to help students understand things better. Any grade level, like I said, it could be a personal tutor. So if I were to go to, hopefully this one will work. This one goes to Gemini. And it gives you a pop-up right there. Gemini will not always get it right, so we will talk about that here in just a minute. But if I were to say, quiz me on states and capitals. So it'll pop up. What's the capital of California? Let's say I just guessed Los Angeles. Okay, close but not right. Want to try again? You say yes, it gives you another example. So like I said, it can quiz you through various prompts or things that you're trying to study, and it can be a personalized tutor for a student. Some uses for teachers. So let's say a teacher could say, here, I have all of these things in my room. Help me come up with a lesson and a lab to teach this concept. It'll spit out a lesson using those materials and a lab that goes along with it to help teach that concept. They can put it in front of a student and say, pretend you're Abraham Lincoln. Students are going to come ask you questions, respond as if you're Abraham Lincoln, and it will do that. Some other options too that teachers have used it for is helping them to do the whole backward design process. Unpack this learning standard into learning targets, and it'll spit out learning targets. And then it builds on each other. So it'll say, okay, now create me some, like a test that will go over that. And then it, unlike Google where you have to, you know, add and it starts over from scratch, it builds on the previous questions. So then it'll come up with a test and then create me a unit plan. And once again, it's not something that you're just going to use as is. You're going to make tweaks. You're going to make adjustments. Actually, when I was testing this in my office before we came over, I put in that code and it gave me the wrong standard. And so when I had done it, so I went back and double checked to make sure I put the right code in, and it was the right code. But once again, it says it will spit out the wrong answer sometimes. And so as users, we've got to teach our teachers and our students that it's not always going to be right. You've got to fact check and things like that. So I thought that worked out. But tonight that was a perfect example. Some of the limitations of AI. So AI is not just coming up with these ideas from scratch, right? It's pulling all of it, it's synthesizing all the websites and things that it finds online. So if those original sources have bias in them from those authors, then it's going to pull that bias in. So like if you were to say, give me a list of famous scientists, it's probably going to give you, all the dead white guys, right? Instead of maybe more current or, more diverse groups. It'll also generate hallucinations or misinformation. So it'll, quote something that wasn't even in the article when it's telling you to summarize an article. So it's always important, and we've got to, once again, teach our students and staff to fact check everything. I know a concern with it is always cheating. Like kids are just going to use this to cheat, right? But we've got to approach this as that was a concern with the calculator, right? So we just had to rethink how we teach math, how we assess math. Now the focus is more on the process, right, instead of the product. And we're just going to have to adjust our practices in the same way using AI. And then just always privacy and security. It's so important to not put in personally identifiable information in it, because then it's out there and available for other resources to pull from.
Yeah, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So, so let's say a student's writing a paper or something, and they use AI to try to generate an essay. And does plagiarism, will AI identify plagiarism on the teacher side?
It will identify its own AI.
Can they-
It'll say the probability of it being AI. You can put it in a program and it'll tell you.
Okay.
Which isn't always accurate as well.
It's
I know
not,
there've been use
yeah.
cases with like college students that have been put on academic probation for it, and so yeah, it's all murky waters right now a little bit with some of that.
Question for you, Tia, is like, so certain level, we're teaching students to think critically.
Right.
And the things that they do now are to test that, to see if they are. How do we train teachers to identify when the correct amount of critical thinking occurred when using these tools?
And I think that's the goal, is to, we've got to train our teachers to understand AI. Again, I'm still learning about it. But then it's teaching our teachers to teach our kids how to use it as a tool. Again, it's not replacing our instruction. It's not replacing assessing what we know, but we're utilizing it as a tool because, again, we are using it in our everyday lives. And so we need to, stay with our current events and best practices and teach our kids to be successful in the real world. And this is ultimately a part of our real world now. So that's something, and that's kind of, again, why this handbook is going to be so important, to put in place the policies, the procedures, the expectations on what is appropriate usage of the tools and how we want it to look in the classroom on teacher use and student use. And that kind of goes into this. These are the things that we are thinking about. And in your packets, I believe you guys have kind of the basic outline that we've started. We want to make sure that we are allowing an appropriate selection of tools. ChatGPT might not be as appropriate as Magic School or Gemini. We want to make sure that we've got the appropriate tools that have good privacy and security measures in it. We've got to get our teachers on board. Training the teachers is going to be the number one thing so that they can appropriately push it out to the students into their classrooms. And then continuously monitoring. Next year, there might be a new, better, awesome tool that we want to promote and push out. So we'll be constant monitoring and evaluating all the tools that we allow our teachers and students to use.
Is there any method of tracking, like what a student enters and is looking so you can see what they searched for and how they used it?
We've got like a school district database that does do that.
Okay.
Yes. So anytime you press enter, like it's tracked. Am I correct on that?
Because
Yes.
to me, that would be valuable to see, to follow their thought process and how they.
Absolutely. What's being typed in, what's being searched, and how often.
Or just, if a student just says, need a paper
Yeah.
based on
Right.
Benjamin Franklin's life,
Yeah.
search,
Yeah,
can
20
we,
minutes.
can we
Exactly. Yeah.
look back and say, okay, all they did was just pull up an AI generated essay.
They're using their school accounts to access.
Right.
And Tia, wasn't there something in the docket about maybe at the middle school you were teaching them, the teachers can like close out certain tabs on computers or monitor what they're searching for. Okay.
So like, for example, say they're doing an online assignment, taking a test, a quiz, the teacher can see on their monitor what every kid sees on the screen. And if they're on something they're not supposed to be, the teacher can just close out.
I mean, I like where you guys are going because there's got to be some sort of,
Yes.
blueprint on how we're going to use it, how we're going to implement it, and, kind of give you some rules on how this.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's going to be a working document where you're probably going to have to pull away or
100%.
whatever.
As it's
each year.
changing, technology changes every day, so that'll be.
There's going to be things that we may not think about right now that next year is like, oh my gosh, why didn't we think of that?
Yep.
Yeah.
New and improved.
Just to that, are you working with other districts to see?
Yes, kind of where they're at. So every district right now is in the beginning stages, like, oh, we see we need something put in place. So he's actually signed up to go to a couple different professional development sessions hosted at other schools and other agencies to learn what they're doing, how they're developing the handbook, so that we can use those resources to create ours.
I'm a part of that Greater Kansas City Tech Leaders Group, and we have a meetup at the end of September, and this is on our agenda of things to talk about for all the districts in the area. And those are even your bigger districts like Blue Springs, Blue Valley, are all a part of that group.
Thanks for doing that. Thanks for getting ahead of something before we're
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah.
I hope. Because we're already behind.
We'll get there.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Board policy F-115-P.
Yeah, the current board policy, when we make the switch to EGS, does not state a specific minimum fund balance reserve amount. Under the previous board policy with NSBA, the specific fund balance percentage was 20%. And that can be added if the board wants to do that, or if they want to change it. I know that there's been some discussion about what is the minimum fund balance that the board would want. This would be where to put it in. So there's, clear guidance on what to, how to approach fiscally each year.
As a very fiscally minded superintendent, John, is that something that you'd like to see in there?
Yeah, I think it gives good guidance. It answers the question on to a board. What is a board comfortable with? Well, the answer is right there. I don't have to ask that question, and the board doesn't have to. If that's not something you've really thought about that much, this is the time to do that, to think through that process of what is the board comfortable with as a minimum fund balance.
So if we ever get in this tight spot to where we have to get in 18% to make something happen, is there a line of action we can take?
Yeah, this is
policy.
Yeah, you can always address policy, change it as necessary, but it also gives good
Provides
guidance
that guidance
for this board and future boards and administration to follow along.
Is this something that we missed last year when we were looking over this, or?
It's something that's not typically in the EDS policy, specific to the percentage amount. That's not what they typically do, but that doesn't mean you can't or that it's wrong or anything like that.
I guess my question is, where did this stem from?
Just general questions about, what is a typical fund balance? What is everybody, that, because then that brings the question, what is this board comfortable with? And if we have that written down in writing, then those questions never come from you to me or from me to you.
It's not hearsay.
I think that 20% number just comes from, generally speaking, from the state that says, hey, this is kind of the average. Because I know that you remember when we went to our school board training, I think it was those packets of our own individual schools, and it talked about where our fund balances were and what percentage we were at, at our district. And then we talked about to the other people at our table to see kind of where they were at. So I think that 20%, and I remember them specifically saying 20% there. So I think that's just kind of the
this
target.
This is just a kind of a minimum, what do we feel comfortable with getting down to before we start?
Yeah, I
Buckling
mean,
down.
even that,
Policy is to make something happen.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think you approach it as this is what we can spend down to.
right.
This is
Once we get to this
once
number,
we start getting close to that number, then there needs to be some conversations as to how do we continue to support and move forward. You know, is it an adjustment in that number? Is it looking at what, you know, are there things that we are doing that we don't have to expend money on?
right.
You know, it's starting to have some of those conversations.
To me, it's a safety net. Basically, once we get to this number, we need to start thinking seriously about how we're spending money. And, you know, if we're above that, great, you know, but we don't want to get too much below that. So, I think it's a great idea.
Next month.
It could be if the board wanted to set what that percentage was, I would bring it back as an action item.
Do a lot of the school districts have this?
Yeah, a lot of districts have a certain number as a fund balance. Most of the districts that I've been a part of are 20 to 25%.
I know in the past, you know, having a healthy reserve is always for worst case scenario. If you know, if we go through a bad economy where things just fall apart, you know, we got money in place that we can continue to operate full scale without cutting jobs or doing anything like that. Is 20% going to keep us comfortably in a range where we can continue to operate in a bad worst case scenario, or is this like a, you know, well, we're teetering on having to cut jobs? And
Depends on what the bad worst case scenario is and how long it lasts.
well,
You know, and honestly, the last bad case scenario we had was back in 2020, and you know the state maintained their funding because the tax dollars were still there. So you know, there's a lot of things that factor into what determines that bad scenario. That was a bad scenario, but it really didn't negatively impact school districts financially because the tax dollars were still there to continue to fund, even though we weren't at school.
was it 2008, 2007
It was in there somewhere.
when we had not necessarily had to cut jobs, but we just weren't giving raises. I mean,
But
9 or 10.
this is the threshold you're setting. If we get to this point, then we have to,
Start taking action.
we gotta
Well,
take action to,
The board would know well in advance.
Should, they should.
Agreed.
Depends on who's sitting in your seat.
right,
If I was sitting here, you would know well in advance of us approaching that number, let alone getting to that number. I think Kat would tell you the exact same thing with her.
I guess my only question is the 20% where you would feel comfortable at, or should it be at 25%?
I would feel comfortable with 20. 25 is not a bad number to have, though, either. You know, I don't want to say that, you know, if you look across the state, there are districts that maintain 20. There's districts that go below that every year. And there's districts that exceed that. So it's kind of all over the board. I have looked at our conference. You know, it's 20%. I don't think there's anybody. There might be one or two that are just below that, but for the most part, everybody is above 20% in what they have in fund balance reserve.
I feel like being a good steward of the money is important, in that in both aspects. Like, we should save it and have it, you know, in case. But then at the same time, don't set on it. You know, like, use this for our kids. So it's like a, you know, where is that? Where does that need at?
Balance. And if you want to take time and think about this, we can make it a discussion item, bring additional thoughts back next month as well.
Good, 20%. Next 10 months, the months are coming to this, and we can reevaluate. I think I'm fine with 20.
at 20%, we would still be pretty healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I don't have a problem with it either. I just say, and that's, if we ever get down that low, what is the percentage? If we got down to a certain percentage that the state would,
About 5% is what the
Okay.
state says you're financially stressed.
Well, this policy doesn't dictate that we can't take action before we get to 20% either. It's just giving us a threshold, a standard.
But
Just a
that's,
reminder.
Yeah,
but that's
exactly.
also assuming kind of what Cole said, the person sitting in that seat's going to tell us well ahead of time. If they don't, they're not doing their job, and you hit 20%. Now it's like, hey, we're already there. Now, some of the decisions we've already made are going to drop us even further. So I was thinking more 25% because that gives us a buffer space. I mean, I feel comfortable with 20, but if it gets to that situation where that person is not doing a solid job, I don't want to be in panic mode and be like, oh no.
I guess I'm looking at this different, you guys. I think this ought to be a number that we don't ever go past.
Yeah, I agree.
And that we don't sit here and come in and say, oh, we're getting close, let's vote and move it to 15. I think it's a number we set that we don't cross.
Right. 100%.
I don't, if that's 15 or 18 or whatever it is, but I don't think, because what I'm hearing is we'll set it at 20 unless we get there and then we'll change it. Well, let's not do it.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then let's just not do it.
We're not putting it in there at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with what your thoughts, what you just said about if we set a number, we should. Thought should be not go lower than that ever.
Right. That gives you that emergency cushion.
Yeah.
Should something financially fall right.
But I'm good with the 20% if that's our 100% threshold and we've got to change the way we live at that point.
I'm thinking the 20 that was presented to us at 20, and you guys see the budget no more about than I do. If you want to think about it, and let us know, and that's what we've got to act on next month.
I'm good at 20.
If you guys are good at 20, I think I bring that back, and if there's further discussion and we don't, and the board doesn't vote to approve it, that's okay, but I think 20 is appropriate.
Next item is the community survey.
Yeah, so starting next week, Excellence K-12 will start calling community members to survey to determine the tax tolerance of the community as the district looks to see what the needs, with Macquarie Elementary School. Survey will also be available on the district website for anyone that wants to take it there. We will be sending out via email to the parents, our students, parents as well. Once that data is collected, then they'll come back and present that information, their findings to the Board of Education. No guarantee that it'll be next month, but I would anticipate possibly next month or November for them to come back and present that information. Because we've got to get things going pretty quickly thereafter.
Is that language due in December or
January, 1st of January.
January? So we have 4 more meetings before it comes to. Okay.
So with it being open for others to take the survey, is that going to skew? I don't see a question on there. Are you an employee of this, or somebody related to an employee of the district?
The only way they're going to differentiate, I think, if I understood correctly, is you'll know what the phone results were, you'll know what the website results were, that type of thing. But no, you won't know whether John Odinger took the survey or not. Whether I was one of the calls.
I think they said that the phone calls provided more like substantial evidence than the surveys, right? Yeah.
Just based on not getting that skew from,
Yeah, exactly.
hey, everybody come make sure you fill out the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Any questions on the community survey? Okay. Moving on is capital improvements.
Dr. Fagan.
So we had several bids come in for the multi-purpose facility. Had 7 general contractors, actually, Centric, Crossland, Excel, Infinity Group, Rothwell, Russell, and Westport Construction. The low bid was Crossland Construction. Their base bid was $2,037,000. With the alternates that we had listed, which were sports flooring, roof-mounted sports equipment, bleachers, brick wainscot, and water fountain, that brought the total to $2,353,000 for the multi-purpose building. Looking at those prices coupled with the current needs that we have for our facilities, we want to look to focus on our current needs, again, being good stewards of the resources, and make sure we're maintaining the current facilities. A few projects that would be upcoming would be the OUE parking lot, the front driveway, getting that resurfaced, finishing up the middle school and high school roof projects. We've made a lot of progress on those with the recent bond issue, but this would complete those. Replacement of baseball field turf, which is, 15, 17, past time for baseball turf, and then resurfacing the track here. You resurface that once in a while to keep the top coat quality, so you don't get into the base layer and create larger problems for you. So, given financially being more responsible with those facilities and upkeeping those, we feel like is important.
Yep, for the time being.
Move on to action items. Transportation routes.
Ready.
So in your packet, you have bus routes and stops with time, as well as maps of those. So each year, a requirement is that the board approves those routes in the fall for the year. Obviously, these might change a little. Families move in or out as we go through the year. You'll notice, I will point out that like everybody, they're obviously always trying to hire people. The driver search is still active. You will notice, or you probably noticed, bus 1 and bus 2 with some pretty early morning times and some longer ride times than the others. We have already spoken with them about adding a route if possible, so we would be able to take some of the kids off each one of those routes and create another route to alleviate that. Unfortunately, right now it's just not possible because a person doesn't exist to drive the bus, but they're aware that we're interested in that, and that's certainly a priority of those 2 routes as we move forward.
On bus 2, I know we talked about this last year. Were those times decreased still? I feel like we've trimmed that down a bit, the ride times.
So probably there was a stop way up north that was on one of those random routes. It's still there, but it's moved to a town route, so that trimmed a little. But then we had a lot of move-ins on bus 2 this summer, so that's why there's so many more stops on that, which did extend the time a little bit. But a couple of those students, I know what you're talking about.
We had town last year that were like 2 hours.
I know. I feel like we had some that were on there till like 5 p.m. and I didn't see any 5 o'clock hours. I didn't think.
No, there's a couple like 10 till, quarter till, those kinds of times, but
I was just hopeful that we were able to shave a little bit of time off, which I think we were.
And if we do end up finding another driver, then obviously that will help alleviate some of these ones that.
Overall, been
really
pleased with Echo Ride so far. I think they're doing a good job. But yeah, that bus, there's some early morning times there for some of those bus 1 and bus 2, unfortunately.
Okay, at this time I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the 24-25 routes as presented.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carried. Next action item is the out-of-state trip student travel requests.
I have 2 requests this month, one for National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, October 22nd through the 26th. And then DECA to the Sports and Entertainment Marketing Conference in Orlando, January 29 through February 2nd.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carried. And that comes to the end of the meeting. I need a motion to conduct a closed executive session, including any record or vote at the next scheduled meeting pursuant to statutes contained in chapter 610, 021 RSMO. So,
Second.
all in favor? Roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.